A mask conceals more than a face tonight. Welcome to Wolfe's Casebook. I am your host, Enigma. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voices make this special. Let's begin. I was 2/3 of the way through a respectable attempt at reorganizing the desk blotter, an act of virtue that would not survive scrutiny, when Fritz Brenner appeared in the doorway with his expression set to formal announcement. That meant one of three things. Lunch was delayed, the orchids were affronted, or Nero Wolfe was about to be bothered. "Archie," Fritz said in the tone usually reserved for minor earthquakes, "there is a gentleman in the front room." I looked up. A gentleman? That narrows it to half the population and excludes the interesting half. "He says he will wait," Fritz added, which told me more than the noun ever could. He did not ask to see Mr. Wolfe. That was the first pebble rolling downhill. Did he give a name? Yes, Adrian K. Voss. That was the second pebble, and it picked up speed. Voss wasn't a nobody. He was the sort of man whose name appeared in the financial pages and on museum donor walls, occasionally in the same paragraph. Adrian K. Voss collected things, paintings, manuscripts, reputations, and he did it quietly, which in New York is a form of public performance. I stood up. "I'll take him. Keep the coffee hot and the secrets cold." The front room looked the same as it always did, orderly, respectable, and quietly judgmental. Voss was standing near the bookcase, not touching anything, which earned him a point. He was tall, spare, impeccably dressed, and wearing the expression of a man who had practiced patience and found it lacking. "Mr. No, Voss," I said. "Archie Goodwin, you're early." "I am never early," he said. "I am merely on time when others are late." That made it 1-1. "Mr. Wolfe is occupied," I told him. "If you'd like to explain why you're here, I can decide whether to interrupt him or spare him." Voss turned, studied me, then nodded once. "I'm here because something was taken from me, something valuable, and because I believe Nero Wolfe will understand why I cannot involve the police." That was the third pebble, and now the hill was gone. I gestured to a chair. He sat carefully, like a man accustomed to weighing furniture before trusting it. "What was taken?" I asked. "A mask." I waited. "Silence is a tool in my kit, and I polish it regularly." "A Renaissance Commedia dell'arte mask," he went on, apparently deciding I wasn't going to help him along. Papier-mâché, hand-painted, mid-16th century, provenance established, value considerable." "And it walked away?" "It was removed," he said, "from a secure environment." I smiled faintly. "That's a polite way to say stolen?" "Yes. Politeness has its uses. So does clarity." "Why us?" "Because," he said, folding his hands, "the theft implicates people I trust, and because the mask was not taken for its monetary value." That got my attention in a way money never quite manages. "Then why?" He hesitated, just enough to matter. "Because it reveals something." "About what?" "About someone." I nodded. "You're doing well for a man who says he doesn't want to explain." "I will explain," Voss said. "But not to you." That made it 2-2, and I didn't like the trend. "I'll see what I can do," I said, and went back to the office. And Nero Wolfe was where he always was, in his chair behind his desk, with his bulk arranged like a permanent installation. He didn't look up when I entered. "An interruption," he said, "is an insult. Is this one justified?" "That depends," I said. "How do you feel about Renaissance masks, stolen secrets, and rich men who don't trust the police?" He sighed. "I feel about them as I do about mosquitoes. I tolerate their existence but object to their proximity." "He's in the front room, Adrian K. Voss." That did it. Wolfe's eyes opened fully, which in his case counts as a reaction. "Indeed," he said. "That is inconvenient." "In what way?" "In all ways. Does he ask for me? No. He says he'll explain, but only to you. Wolfe frowned. A discourtesy. A calculated one. Wolfe drummed his fingers once on the desk. A sound like a small animal tapping for help. Does he mention a mask? Yes. Does he suggest that the mask reveals something? Yes. Wolfe closed his eyes again. Bring him. That was not a victory. That was a concession. I returned to the front room and delivered the news. Voss stood immediately, as though he'd been holding himself in check. We entered the office. Voss stopped short when he saw Wolfe, which happens more often than you'd think. Nero Wolfe has a way of rearranging a room without moving. Mr. Wolfe, Voss said, inclining his head. Thank you. Sit, Wolfe replied, and speak concisely. Voss sat. He looked at Wolfe with the expression of a man who had come prepared to negotiate and discovered he was unarmed. The mask, Voss said, was part of a private collection. It was loaned discreetly, to a small exhibition hosted in my townhouse 3 nights ago. Attendance was limited. 5 guests, all known to me, all trusted. And now, Wolfe said, one is not. Yes. Wolfe steepled his fingers. You believe the mask was taken not as an object, but as an instrument? Yes. Explain. Voss drew a breath. The mask bears an interior inscription, invisible unless one knows where to look. It identifies the original wearer, not by name, but by symbol. A sigil, one associated with a specific patronage network. Political, dangerous. Dangerous now? Wolfe asked. Dangerous again, Voss said. Certain alliances are resurfacing. I shifted my weight. This was drifting toward the kind of thing that gives me indigestion. You believe, Wolfe said, that one of your guests took the mask to prevent that connection from being revealed. Or to use it, Voss said quietly. Wolfe regarded him. And you have not gone to the police because the truth, Voss said, would damage institutions I've spent my life supporting. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Altruism is rarely convincing. I'm not altruistic, Voss said. I am pragmatic. Wolfe nodded once. That is more plausible. There was a pause. The room held it. Mr. Wolfe, Voss said, I ask you to recover the mask. Quietly. And to determine which of my guests took it. And then? Wolfe asked. Voss met his gaze. Then I will decide what justice requires. Wolfe leaned back, the chair creaking in mild protest. You will pay my fee, he said. You will answer my questions, sir, and you will accept my conclusions. Yes, and you will not, Wolfe added, attempt to manipulate my actions to serve your private ends. Voss smiled thinly. I would not dare. Good, Wolfe said, because I would notice. Silence again. Then Wolfe turned his head slightly. Archie, he said, you will begin by obtaining a list of the guests. Names, histories, relationships. You will observe, you will listen, and you will touch nothing that does not belong to you. I never do, I said, on purpose. Wolfe looked back at Voss. The sanctity of this house, he said, has already been disturbed by your presence. I will not permit further disruption without compensation. Voss stood. I understand. As he left, I had the distinct impression that something invisible had followed him in and decided to stay. I turned to Wolfe. Bears a mask that reveals the truth, I said. You don't see that every day. No, Wolfe replied, but one sees daily the damage done by those who fear what they wear. He reached for the bell. Fritz, he called. Lunch. And just like that, the case had begun. Not with a crime scene, but with an idea. And ideas, in Nero Wolfe's house, have a way of getting dangerous. Wolfe's bell had barely stopped vibrating the air when the door opened, and Fritz appeared, composed enough to make you think we had rung for a menu suggestion instead of a problem with a Renaissance mask and a wealthy man with complicated ethics. Yes, Herr Wolfe. Lunch, Wolfe said, and coffee for Mr. Goodwin. Strong. Fritz's eyes slid to me, then back. Very well. When the door closed, Wolfe's gaze stayed where it had settled, somewhere just above my shoulder, as if he were studying the air for impertinence. Before you begin to enjoy yourself, I said, you want the list of the 5 guests. I want everything, Wolfe said, but yes, begin with that. You will telephone Mr. Voss at once. I made the call from the side table in the office. Voss answered on the second ring, and his voice sounded as if he'd been expecting it since he stepped off our stoop. Goodwin. Archie. Mr. Wolfe requests the names of the 5 guests at your townhouse 3 nights ago. Full names, occupations, and your relationship to them. There was a fraction of silence, as if he was deciding how much truth could be served without choking. Then he said, I will provide them. Are you prepared to write? I always am. He gave them carefully, like a man placing glass ornaments on a hard floor. First, Celeste Marrow, and she is the curator at the Holder Museum. She advised on the selection. I wrote it down. Curator, museums meant donors, and donors meant favors. That fit. Second, Dr. Lionel Brandt, professor of Renaissance Studies at Columbia. He authenticated the piece years ago. Academic. That could mean obsession, vanity, or both. Third, Gwendolyn Pike, attorney, partner at Pike & Kersey. She handles certain private matters for me. Lawyer. That meant she knew where bodies were buried, metaphorically, and could have a shovel ready if needed. Fourth, Reuben Sloan, investor. He is an acquaintance through philanthropy. Investor could mean predator with a tie, or just a man who smiled while counting. Fifth, Marcus Lyle. He is my security consultant. That last one made my pencil pause. Your security consultant attended as a guest. Yes, Voss said, my shade too quickly. He is trusted. That word again. Trusted, trusted, trusted. Like a prayer, repeated to keep the devil from noticing you. Any staff present? I asked. Only my housekeeper and a caterer. They were not in the exhibition room while the guests were there. Names? Mrs. Nwosu, and the caterer was a service, Valentine and company. All right, we'll proceed. There was a hesitation. Goodwin. Yeah? The mask is not simply an object to me. I held the receiver to my ear and looked at Wolfe. He was watching me now, which meant he was watching the words too. It's never just an object, I said. That's why people steal them. I hung up. Wolfe's eyebrows lifted 0.5 millimeter. The names? I read them off. Wolfe listened without expression until I reached the last. Marcus Lyle, he repeated. Security consultant. Yep, that one jumps out even if you're sitting down. It jumps out precisely because you're standing, Wolfe said. A man responsible for security is the last person one expects to be present at a gathering intended to display a valuable item to a small circle. Unless the gathering is also intended to display the circle, I said. Wolfe's lips compressed. Do not be clever, or if you must, be useful. Try stopping me. Fritz came in with coffee on a tray and the first pleasant smell of lunch, which was a balm and also in Wolfe's house. A warning, whatever else was happening, the schedule would not accommodate it. Wolfe ate in silence, as he always did, with a devotion that would have impressed a monk if monks had appetites like that. I ate too, because Fritz's cooking is the kind of evidence you don't ignore. Between bites, I sorted the 5 names in my head. Curator, professor, lawyer, investor, security man. 5 guests is a neat number. It suggests planning. It suggests the kind of private event where every conversation is part of a transaction. When Wolfe finished, He dabbed his mouth, glanced at the clock, and returned to the office with the air of a man returning to work after a brief but necessary excursion into pleasure. "Archie," he said, settling into his chair as if the chair had been waiting nervously. "You will go to the Halder Museum first. Speak with Miss Marrow." "Today? Now," Wolfe said. "Time is a component of truth. It diminishes rapidly." I stood, snagged my coat, and paused. "Any guidance besides ask questions and don't get shot?" Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Ask her why she attended. Ask her why she would risk her reputation in a private exhibition of an item with dubious implications. Ask her what she knows of the inscription. Ask her about the others. And, if you can manage it, observe without advertising that you are observing." "I'll do my best to look naturally nosy," I said. "Also," Wolfe added, "you will acquire the guest list in the form of written invitations, if any exist. If none exist, determine how each was invited. Telephone? Letter? In person? A private circle leaves traces." I nodded and headed out. The Halder Museum, like most museums, was built to make you feel both small and indebted. Celeste Marrow's office was on an upper floor behind a door that required a staff badge and a receptionist who looked at me as if I were a stain. "I'm here to see Miss Marrow," I told her. "Archie Goodwin." She blinked. "Sue, do you have an appointment?" "No," I said, "but I have urgency, charm, and an ability to sit quietly if threatened." That got me nothing but a thinner expression. Still, I've met gatekeepers before. The trick is to present yourself as inevitable. I leaned in a little. "It concerns Mr. Adrian Voss." That did it. Voss's name worked like a key in certain locks. After a brief phone call, I was waved through. Marrow's office was tasteful and spare, with framed exhibition posters on the wall and a smell faintly of paper and expensive coffee. She stood behind her desk when I entered. Celeste Marrow was in her late 30s, with sharp cheekbones and the controlled posture of someone who spent her life guarding objects and ideas from the public. Her eyes were quick and cool. "Mr. Goodwin," she said, "I was told this is urgent." "It is," I said. "Sir, and I'll keep it brief. You attended a private exhibition at Adrian Voss's townhouse 3 nights ago." Her face didn't change, but her fingers tightened on the edge of the desk. "Yes." "A mask was displayed," I said. "It's missing." That time she did react. A small exhale, a soft widening of the eyes. Surprise. Real, I thought, or well rehearsed. "That's unfortunate," she said carefully. "It's theft," I corrected. "Mr. Voss retained Nero Wolfe. I'm his assistant." At the mention of Wolfe, she paused. "Everybody in New York who matters knows Nero Wolfe's name. The ones who don't are lucky." "What does Mr. Wolfe want from me?" she asked. "He wants facts," I said. "And your honesty, which is often harder. Start with this. Why were you there?" She hesitated, then walked around the desk and sat, folding her hands. As Voss has been a patron of the Halder for years, he offered a private viewing of certain pieces, not officially on loan. It was a courtesy and an opportunity. "For you," I said. "For the museum," she corrected. "Relationships matter." "They do," I agreed. "So does the law. Did you know the mask had an interior inscription?" Her eyes flicked away for a fraction of a second, then returned. I knew there was scholarly debate about markings. Nothing more. That was a clean answer. Too clean. "Who else knew?" I asked. "Dr. Brandt, certainly," she said. "He's obsessed with that era. He lives for hidden symbols." "And the others?" "I don't know what they know," she said. "Gwen Pike is Voss's attorney. Sloane is a man who likes to be near valuable things. Marcus Lyle." She paused, and a faint crease appeared between her brows. "Was there a security? Did that strike you as odd?" I asked. "Yes," she said. But Mr. Voss does odd things when he's nervous. Nervous about what? Marrow looked at me for a moment, weighing me the way curators weigh authenticity. Mr. Goodwin, she said, if you're asking whether I believe the mask carries implications beyond art, yes, I believe it does. Did Mr. Voss tell you what? I asked. She shook her head. Not directly, but there was tension. Not among all of us. Among some. Which some? I asked. Marrow's lips tightened. Brant and Pike. They argued quietly near the doorway before the viewing began. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the posture. Pike was warning him. Brant was insisting. About the mask? About something connected to it, she said, and Sloane watched them like it was entertainment. Lyle watched everyone like it was his job. That was useful. I took out my notebook again. Tell me about the room. Who went near the display? Who touched it? It was in a glass case, Marrow said, on a pedestal. The case was unlocked when we entered. Mr. Voss opened it himself. He held the mask. He showed it to us briefly. He did not pass it around. Then how did it vanish? I asked. She spread her hands slightly. That's what I don't understand. We were there perhaps 40 minutes. Then Mr. Voss put it back, locked the case, and we moved to the dining room. When we returned later, after drinks, he opened the case again and it was gone. I stared at her. So there was a gap. Yes. Who was left alone with the exhibition room during that gap? Marrow shook her head. We were all in the dining room. Except Mr. Lyle stepped out. He said he needed to check something. Did anyone else leave? I asked. Dr. Brant went to the restroom, she said. He was gone perhaps 5 minutes. That's all I recall. I thanked her and asked for any written invitation or message she'd received. She said it had been a phone call from Voss himself. No paper trail, just a voice and a date. When I left the museum, the air outside felt colder, sharper, like the city had been listening and didn't approve. I stood on the sidewalk and looked at my notes. A locked case, a missing mask, a gap during which the room was unattended, except for a security man checking something, and a professor with a bladder and an obsession. And somewhere inside that missing papier-mâché, an inscription that could apparently resurrect old alliances and new fears. I hailed a cab back toward the brownstone, because Wolfe would want this while it was still warm. As the cab pulled away from the curb, I had the uncomfortable thought that the case wasn't going to stay politely contained in Voss's townhouse. It had already breached the one place in New York where order was treated as sacred, Wolfe's house. And if the mask really did reveal the truth, then whoever took it wasn't just a thief. They were a person who couldn't afford to be seen. The cab dropped me in front of the brownstone just as the afternoon light was slanting the way Wolfe liked it. Indirect, civilized, and not demanding participation. I went straight in, climbed the stairs 2 at a time, and found Wolfe exactly where I'd left him, as if time outside had been a rumor. He looked up when I entered. You are prompt, he said. Now that is either encouraging or ominous. Dealer's choice, I said, and took my seat. Celeste Marrow sings soprano with restraint. Details, Wolfe said. I gave them to him, clean and in order. The locked case, the dining room interval, Marcus Lyle's absence, Brant's restroom break, the argument between Brant and Pike, Sloane's detached amusement. Wolfe listened with his eyes half-lidded, fingers steepled, absorbing it the way he absorbed orchids. Slowly, thoroughly, and with opinions. When I finished, he was silent for a full 10 seconds. Then, the curator did not take the mask. That was my read, I said. Surprised, controlled, and too professionally terrified to be stupid. Yes, and the investor? Sloane? I shrugged. Predatory interest, but no heat yet. He enjoyed the tension. That's not the same as causing it. And Marcus Lyle, Wolfe said softly. That one worries me, I said. Security men who attend as guests make my teeth itch. Wolfe nodded. A man whose function is vigilance should not require an alibi. Continue. Next stop is Brant, I said. Columbia. Renaissance studies. Obsessions included. Indeed, Wolfe murmured. Proceed. But first, he reached into a drawer and removed a slim notebook, which he opened and consulted as if checking a recipe. You will also speak to Miss Pike today, if possible. Attorneys are adept at concealment, but they are also constrained by habit. If she refuses, note the manner of refusal. Refusal as evidence, I said. I like it. There is more, Wolfe added. You will ask each of them the same question, phrased identically. What's the question? Why did Mr. Voss show you the mask? I nodded. Consistency test. Precisely, Wolfe said. Truth varies. Lies synchronize. I left again because that's my job. Columbia's campus has a way of making you feel undereducated even when you know the alphabet. Dr. Lionel Brant's office was in a building that smelled like old books and newer ambition. He was in when I arrived, which surprised me. Professors often guard their office hours the way dragons guard gold. Brant was a compact man in his early 50s with thinning hair, sharp eyes, and a restlessness that made him shift in his chair before I'd even finished introducing myself. Nero Wolfe, he said when I mentioned the name. That's excessive. Truth often is, I said. May I sit? He gestured sharply. So you're here about the mask? Yes. I told Voss he should go to the authorities. Did you? I asked. Yes, immediately. The artifact is missing, I said. I know. Why did Mr. Voss show you the mask? Brant's mouth opened, then closed. That fraction of a second was informative. Because, he said carefully, he wanted my opinion. On what? I asked. On authenticity, he snapped. On interpretation. Interpretation of what? I asked. The exterior is well known. Brant leaned back, eyes narrowing. You're fishing. I'm counting, I said. Answer the question. He exhaled. He believed there was an interior marking, an inscription. I had written a paper years ago suggesting such marks were used by certain patronage networks to identify ideological allegiance. Dangerous allegiance, I asked. Historically controversial, Brant said. Modernly sensitive. Did you see the inscription? I asked. No, he said quickly. Too quickly. Voss would not allow it. But you wanted to? I said. Yes, he admitted. Of course I did. It would have been confirmation. Did you argue with Gwen Pike about it? I asked. His jaw tightened. She warned me not to pursue it, said it would complicate matters beyond scholarship. Did she explain how? I asked. No, he said. Only that Voss had interests beyond the academic. I let that sit for a moment. During the dinner interval, I said, You left the dining room? Yes, Brant said. I went to the restroom. Alone? Yes. Did you go near the exhibition room? I asked. He hesitated. I passed the doorway. Did you enter? I asked. No, he said. I considered it, whereas but the case was locked. Did you check? I asked. Brant's eyes flicked away. I looked. That was something. Did you see Marcus Lyle? I asked. Yes, he said. He was in the hall speaking into his phone. He looked irritated. About what? I asked. I don't know, Brant said. But when I returned to the dining room, he followed shortly after. That matched Marrow's account. I stood. Thank you, Doctor. One last thing. He looked up sharply. What? Why didn't you take the mask? I asked. He stared at me, affronted. Because I am not a criminal. Because, I said evenly, if the inscription is what you think it is, possession would make you complicit, not enlightened. Brant flushed. That's absurd. Is it? I asked. I left him with that. Outside, I checked my watch. Pike's office was downtown, and lawyers are more likely to see you if you arrive before they can invent reasons not to. Gwendolyn Pike occupied a corner office with glass walls and the kind of view that suggested leverage. She stood when I entered, tall, composed, and dressed like someone who never apologized. "Mr. Goodwin," she said, "I expected you." "That makes one of us," I said. "Why did Mr. Voss show you the mask?" She smiled faintly. "Because he trusted me." "With what?" I asked. "With discretion," she said. "And counsel." "Did you know about the inscription?" I asked. "Yes," she said without hesitation. That alone set her apart. "He told me weeks ago." "Why?" I asked. "Because if it became public, it would expose certain donors, institutions, and individuals to scrutiny they would prefer to avoid," she said, "including people who are very litigious." "Did you argue with Brandt?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "He wanted to publish speculation. I warned him that speculation has consequences." "Did you leave the dining room during the interval?" I asked. "No," she said. "I remained at the table with Mr. Sloane." "Talking about?" I asked. "Investments," she said dryly. "What else?" "Did you see Marcus Lyle?" I asked. "Yes," she said. He excused himself before the others. Said there was a security concern. "And you believed him?" I asked. She looked at me steadily. I believed he wanted to be alone. That was good. I left her office with a familiar itch between my shoulders, the sense of being watched by a case that had opinions of its own. By the time I got back to the brownstone, dusk had settled in. Fritz answered the door and took my coat, so his expression neutral but alert. "Mr. Wolfe is in the office," he said. "He has not been disturbed." That made me uneasy. I went up. Wolfe looked up as I entered, and for the first time since the case began, there was a glint of something like anticipation in his eyes. "You have confirmed," he said before I spoke, "that Marcus Lyle is the fulcrum." "That's my vote," I said. But, Wolfe continued, "he's not the principal actor." I stopped. "You're ahead of me." "Not ahead," Wolfe said. "Centered. Lyle had opportunity, motive, and access, but he lacks the incentive to retain the mask." "Unless he's being paid," I said. "Precisely," Wolfe said, "and not merely with money." He shifted slightly in his chair. "Something has been disturbed in this house, Archie." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Wolfe's eyes flicked toward the shelf behind him, where a small, nondescript spice jar sat among others. "That jar," he said. "It has been moved." I stared at it. To me, it looked like a jar. "To you," Wolfe said calmly, "it is a jar. To me, it is an index of intrusion." That was the first time the case stopped being polite. And whoever had taken the mask, or ordered it taken, had just crossed a line. I went over to the shelf and leaned in like a man inspecting groceries for signs of sabotage. The jar in question was one of Fritz's. Plain glass, a tidy label in his neat hand, and a contents list that meant nothing to me except that it probably belonged in something delicious. "You're telling me," I said, "that somebody came in here and committed the felony of misplacing paprika?" Wolfe's eyes stayed on me, unsteady and unimpressed. "Do not be puerile. That jar has stood precisely 1 inch from the edge of the shelf since October. I observed it when Fritz rearranged the spices to accommodate the new Hungarian import." "You observed the spice shelf." "I observe what is mine," Wolfe said, "and what is not. The difference is important." I lifted the jar gently, very gently. "What's inside?" "Marjoram," Wolfe said. "Fritz uses it in the veal." I unscrewed the lid and sniffed. It smelled like herbs. Possibly marjoram, possibly lawn clippings. I put it back exactly where it had been, or as close as my 1-inch estimation could manage. "Maybe Fritz bumped it," I said. "No," Wolfe replied. Maybe Theodore. Mr. Horstman does not enter my office. All right, I said. So someone did. When? Wolfe's mouth tightened. Between your departure this morning and your return this evening. That narrows it down to everyone who's been in the house, I said. Which is almost no one, Wolfe said. I ran through the day in my head. Fritz and Theodore, of course. Me, in and out. Wolfe, stationary, and my eyes went to the front room door. Did we have any callers? I asked. 2, Wolfe said. A messenger with a delivery for Mrs. Nwosu. Fritz sent him away, and a man who claimed to be from Valentine and Company. I straightened. The caterer's service. Yes, Wolfe said. He wished to speak with me. I blinked. About what? Hors d'oeuvres? He said he had information relevant to Mr. Voss's affair, Wolfe replied. I instructed Fritz to tell him I was indisposed. Did Fritz do that? He did, Wolfe said. The man departed, but not before requesting to use the lavatory. And Fritz let him? No, Wolfe said. Fritz is not imbecilic. I stared at Wolfe. Then how did the jar move? Wolfe's gaze slid to the bell, then back. Because, he said, someone already inside this house moved it. A chilly little draft went down my spine, despite the radiators doing their job. The brownstone had a way of feeling like an extension of Wolfe himself. Sealed, controlled, predictable. The idea of an intruder wasn't just an insult. It was an affront to physics. I took a slow breath. Okay, let's treat it like evidence instead of an herb. Yes, Wolfe said. Who has access to your office? I asked. Fritz, Theodore, yourself, Wolfe said. And occasionally Mr. Kramer when he insists. Any chance Kramer dropped by without telling us? I asked. Wolfe snorted. Mr. Ty Kramer announces his presence like a brass band. Then it's Fritz or Theodore, I said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Or someone with the capacity to circumvent a locked door. I glanced at the office door. It was solid, with a lock that had never given me reason to doubt it. But locks are the kind of thing that exist to make honest people feel better. Did the lock show any sign? No, Wolfe said, and that is significant. I leaned back, thinking. So either someone got a key, I said, or someone was in here while the door was open. Wolfe said nothing, which meant he agreed but was waiting for me to catch up to the part he already knew. I stood. Let me ask Fritz and Theodore. I have already done so, Wolfe said. I stopped. And? Fritz was in the kitchen. Theodore was in the plant rooms, or neither entered here. You believe them? I believe Fritz, Wolfe said flatly. As for Theodore, I believe he believes what he says. That was Wolfe's version of maybe. Okay, I said. So what did the intruder do besides nudge Marjoram? Wolfe's eyes flicked, not to the shelf now, but to his desk blotter. He took nothing, Wolfe said. He left nothing, and yet he announced himself. By moving the jar, I said. Yes, Wolfe said. A message. An impertinence. I stared at the shelf again. It didn't look like a message. It looked like cooking supplies. But whoever did it had chosen something Wolfe would notice, not something that would help them. That was either a warning or a demonstration. I sat down. All right, this connects to the mask theft. How? Wolfe leaned back. Mr. Voss's matter involves concealment, access, ours and intimidation. The same qualities apply here. Someone wants me to know I am within their reach. Or, I said, someone wants you to think you are. Wolfe's eyes brightened a fraction. Better. That was as close to praise as I ever got without submitting an invoice. I reached for my notebook. Who benefits from rattling Wolfe? Someone who fears my inquiry, Wolfe said. Or someone who wishes to direct it. I tapped my pen. We've got 5 primary players around Voss. plus staff, plus any shadowy patronage network rising from the Renaissance like a bad smell. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Do not romanticize it. Men do not need centuries to be contemptible. I nodded. Pike knew about the inscription weeks ago. Brant wanted it. Sloane wanted to be near valuable things. Marrow wanted museum leverage. Lyle had access and motive for someone else. The staff, Nwosu, and the caterer are wild cards. Indeed, Wolfe said. And there is an additional consideration. What? Wolfe's eyes dropped to the desk, then lifted to mine. Mr. Voss lied, he said. I blinked. About what? About the gathering, Wolfe said. It was not merely an exhibition, it was a test. A test of what? I asked. A test of loyalty, Wolfe said. He invited 5 people not because they were trusted, but because he suspected one of them. The mask was bait. I sat very still for a moment. So Voss was dangling a dangerous object to see who snapped. Yes, Wolfe said. And now the snapper is aware he is being pursued. I whistled softly. Which is why we got a poke in the spice rack. Thanks a little, keep your hands off, from someone with a key. Wolfe reached for the telephone. Precisely. Who are you calling? I asked, though I already had a guess. Saul Panzer, Wolfe said. About time, I muttered. Wolfe dialed, listened, and then spoke in the tone he used when hiring competence. Saul, I require your services at once. There is a matter of surveillance and identification. Come to the brownstone within the hour. He hung up and looked at me. Meanwhile, he said, you will return to Mr. Voss's townhouse. I frowned. Now? It's evening. Now, Wolfe said. You will inspect the exhibition room. You will speak with Mrs. Nwosu. You will determine whether any keys are missing or duplicated. And you will inquire about Marcus Lyle's arrangements with Valentine and company. Arrangements? I said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. It is too convenient that a representative of the caterer should appear at this house today. We refused him, yet the message arrived regardless. I stood. So someone used the caterer as a pretext to get close to us. Yes, Wolfe said, and perhaps to ascertain whether I am engaged. Which I am, I said. Which you are, Wolfe agreed. Go, Archie, and be careful. A man who moves a spice jar has restraint. The next message may not be so courteous. I grabbed my coat again and headed for the door, feeling that odd mixture of irritation and exhilaration that always came when Wolfe's safe little universe got a hairline crack. Outside, the city had its nighttime face on, lights, noise, and the illusion that anything could happen without consequence. I hailed a cab and gave Voss's address. As we drove uptown, and I kept seeing that jar in my mind, nudged just enough to be noticed. Not theft, touch, not damage, signal. Whoever it was didn't want Wolfe's marjoram. They wanted his attention, and now they had it. Voss's townhouse had the kind of quiet that comes from money-paying people to keep it that way. The cab let me out under a street lamp that cast more shadow than light, and the front of the house looked as respectable and uninterested as it had the first time. Brick facade, polished brass. No sign that a dangerous idea had passed through recently. Mrs. Nwosu answered the door. She was a compact woman with steady eyes and an expression that suggested she didn't scare easily, but resented having to prove it. Yes, she said. Archie Goodwin, I told her. Nero Wolfe's office. I need to ask you a few questions. She hesitated only a moment. She then stepped aside. Mr. Voss said you might return. That was interesting. Did he? Yes. He said I should answer honestly. That's my favorite kind, I said, and followed her in. The house smelled faintly of polish and old paper. She led me to the exhibition room, and when she opened the door, I had the brief, odd sensation of walking into a place that had lost its purpose. The pedestal stood there, the glass case on top of it like a lid on an empty jar. "May I?" I asked. She nodded. I circled the pedestal slowly, not touching anything. The case was clean, too clean, like something that had been wiped down in a hurry and then forgotten. I crouched and looked at the base. No scratches, no scuffs. Whoever took the mask hadn't rushed. "Tell me about the night of the exhibition," I said. "After dinner." She folded her hands. "Oh, they came back into this room. Mr. Voss unlocked the case. He reached inside. Then he stopped." "Because it was empty," I said. "Yes," she said. "He did not shout. He just stood very still." "Who else was here?" I asked. "All of them," she said. "The guests. Mr. Lyle came in last." "Did anyone touch the case besides Mr. Voss?" I asked. She shook her head. "No." Mr. Lyle looked at the lock. "Did he say anything?" I asked. "He said it had not been forced," she said. He sounded surprised. That tracked. "What happened after?" "Mr. Voss dismissed the guests," she said. "Politely. He told me to call the caterer and send them home as well." "Which caterer?" I asked. "Valentine and Company," she said. "The same as before." I nodded. "Did anyone from Valentine and Company return after that night?" She hesitated. "Yes." "When?" I asked. "This afternoon," she said. "A man came. He said he had left something behind. A tray." "And did he?" I asked. "No," she said. "There was no tray missing." "Did you let him in?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "He had identification." "What did he look like?" I asked. She thought. "Tall, brown hair. He wore a dark jacket. He was polite." "Did he go into this room?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "He said he needed to check." "And you let him?" I asked. She met my eyes. "He was from the caterer. They had been here before." That was fair, also unfortunate. "Did he take anything?" I asked. "I did not see him take anything," she said. "Did he move anything?" I asked. She frowned. "I do not know." I straightened. "Did you notice anything out of place after he left?" She shook her head. "No." I believed her. Mrs. Nwosu had the look of a woman who noticed things because she had to. "Do you know Marcus Lyle well?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "He comes often." "Often as in professionally?" I asked. "Yes." "Or socially?" I asked. She paused. "He stays late sometimes. He speaks with Mr. Voss." "That's vague," I said gently. She looked down. "He has access." "So do you," I said. "Different kinds." She nodded once, stiffly. "Do you know if any keys are missing?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. Mr. Voss keeps them secured." "Who has copies?" I asked. "Mr. Lyle," she said. "For security." That settled in place like a bad toothache. I thanked her and stepped back into the hallway. Before I left, I glanced at the front table near the stairs. A small silver dish sat there, holding keys. I didn't touch them. I just counted. There were 3. It's when I got outside, the night air felt thinner. I walked half a block before stopping under another street lamp and pulling out my notebook. Caterer again. A man using Valentine and Company as a cover, this time successfully. Access granted by familiarity. And Marcus Lyle with keys and reason to provide them. I got back in a cab and headed for the brownstone. Saul Panzer was already there when I arrived, which was comforting. Saul had a way of being everywhere without ever being obvious about it. He was sitting in the front room, hat on his knee, looking like a man waiting for a bus that would never come. "Archie," he said, nodding. "You look busy." "Just catching up," I said. "You?" "I've been catching people," Saul said, "or at least watching them catch themselves." That sounded promising. Upstairs, Wolfe listened as I laid it out. The caterer visit, the access, the keys, Lyle's regular presence? Yes, Wolfe said when I finished. It aligns. Aligns with what? I asked. With Saul's findings, Wolfe said. Saul cleared his throat. Marcus Lyle left Mr. Voss's house the night of the exhibition, he said, and went directly to a midtown parking garage. He retrieved a package from a locker. He then drove to a private storage facility in Queens. That sounds like a mask in transit, I said. Perhaps, Wolfe said, or perhaps something else. Saul continued. The following day, Lyle met with Reuben Sloane. Lunch. They spoke for 40 minutes. And? I asked. And then Sloane visited the same storage facility, Saul said. Different locker. That was interesting. Did he take anything out? I asked. Yes, Saul said. A flat parcel, door wrapped. I looked at Wolfe. So Sloane paid Lyle to lift the mask. Wolfe shook his head. No. Why not? I asked. Because Sloane does not need the mask, Wolfe said. He needs leverage. And the mask provides that, I said. Indirectly, Wolfe said. But not for Sloane. He lacks the historical and ideological interest. He's a financier. He monetizes fear. He does not curate it. Then why meet Lyle? I asked. Because Lyle is a courier, Wolfe said, and Sloane is an intermediary. I frowned. Between who and who? Wolfe leaned back. Between the thief and the true recipient. Who? I asked. Wolfe's eyes slid to Saul. Saul? Saul hesitated. There was a third visit to the storage facility. Tonight. Gwen Pike. That landed with weight. I sat back. The lawyer. Yes, Saul said. She arrived alone. She opened the locker Sloane had used. She removed the parcel. And? I asked. She took it to her office, Saul said. It's there now. I let out a slow breath. So Pike orchestrated it. Not necessarily, Wolfe said, but she's now in possession. And that's enough, I said. Yes, Wolfe agreed. It is time. For what? I asked. For pressure, Wolfe said. Subtle, but decisive. He reached for the telephone again. Archie, tomorrow morning you will invite all parties to the brownstone, Mr. Voss included. Office gathering, I said. Indeed, Wolfe said. The mask has done its work. It is time for it to speak. I glanced toward the shelf, toward the marjoram jar, now sitting exactly where Wolfe wanted it. And whoever moved the spice jar? I asked. Wolfe's mouth curved slightly. That, he said, was impatience. From Pike? I asked. No, Wolfe said. From Mr. Voss. I stared. Voss came into your office? Yes, Wolfe said calmly. Briefly, he wished to know whether I was making progress. And he nudged a jar to make sure you noticed, I said. Precisely, Wolfe said. A wealthy man's idea of urgency. I shook my head. That's either brave or stupid. Both, Wolfe said, which makes him human. He folded his hands. Get some rest, Archie. Tomorrow we strip the mask from its wearer. I stood, feeling the weight of it all settling into place. The circle had tightened, the bait had been taken, and the brownstone, once disturbed, was about to become the stage where it all came apart, quietly, precisely, and with nowhere left to hide. Morning arrived with the kind of dignity Wolfe approved of. No drama, no apology. And the brownstone had absorbed the case the way it absorbed everything else that dared to disturb it, by reducing it to order and filing it away. I was halfway through the mail when Wolfe spoke from his chair. Archie. Yeah? The mask has been returned to Mr. Voss. Quietly, I asked. Immaculately, Wolfe said. It will be placed in a secure archive, its existence acknowledged only to those already burdened with the knowledge. Meaning the people who caused the trouble in the first place, I said. Precisely, Wolfe replied. Justice need not be theatrical to be complete. I leaned back. No cops, no headlines, no trials. No, Wolfe said, but consequences. Pike? I asked. She has withdrawn from several boards, Wolfe said. A strategic retreat. She will survive, diminished but wiser. Sloane? I asked. He has divested from 2 cultural foundations, Wolfe said. Publicly, for personal reasons. Privately, because proximity to scandal has become unprofitable. And Lyle? I asked. Wolfe's lips thinned. He has been dismissed. His reputation will precede him. That's a polite way to say finished, I said. Finished men, Wolfe said, are often merely men who have exhausted their excuses. I nodded. And Voss? Wolfe was silent for a moment, which meant the answer mattered. Mr. Voss, he said, has learned that orchestration is not immunity. He sought to identify a threat and discovered that manipulation invites retaliation. You think he regrets it? I asked. Wolfe's eyes lifted to mine. Regret is irrelevant. Awareness is sufficient. I sorted through the last envelope and slid it into the outgoing tray. You know, I said, most people would have called the police the minute a valuable artifact went missing. Yes, Wolfe said. Most people are not accustomed to controlling narratives. And that's what this was, I said. A fight over who gets to tell the story. Wolfe inclined his head. Stories confer power. That is why men disguise them as objects. I stood and wandered toward the shelf behind him, stopping just short of the spice jars. Everything back where it belongs, I said. For now, Wolfe replied. Fritz appeared in the doorway, bearing coffee and the faint look of a man pleased with the state of the universe. Breakfast, he announced. Wolfe rose, and we moved to the dining room. The ritual resumed. Silverware aligned, plates warm, conversation economical, as Wolfe ate with the satisfaction of a man whose appetite was untroubled by unfinished business. Halfway through, he spoke again. There is a temptation, Wolfe said, to believe that concealment is the same as safety. I looked up. You mean the mask? Yes, Wolfe said, and those who coveted it. They believed that by controlling access to knowledge, they controlled outcome. But knowledge has a way of leaking, I said. Indeed, Wolfe said, especially when wielded as leverage rather than understood as responsibility. I chewed on that, and on Fritz's cooking, which deserved its own philosophy. After breakfast, Wolfe returned to his chair. I returned to my desk. The case notes were already thinning in my mind, flattening into something that would one day be recalled as that business with the mask. The phone rang once more, late morning this time. I answered. Nero Wolfe's office. Voss's voice came through quieter than before. Goodwin, is Mr. Wolfe available? He's available to listen, I said. I handed Wolfe the receiver. He listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. Yes, Wolfe said at last. That would be advisable. No, I do not recommend further tests. You have had sufficient instruction. Good day. He hung up and looked at me. Voss? I asked. He wished to confirm that the matter was concluded, Wolfe said, and to inquire whether I would consider advising him in the future. And? I asked. I declined, Wolfe said. One should not reward bad faith with continued access. I grinned. That'll sting more than your fee. Fees are transient, Wolfe said. Reputation endures. The afternoon settled into its usual rhythm, and the brownstone was quiet again. Not empty, but composed. The kind of quiet that comes from things being where they belong. As I gathered my coat to leave, I glanced once more at the shelf. You know, I said, all this over something no one ever even saw. Wolfe's eyes flicked to the shelf, then back to me. Masks, he said, are most powerful when worn, not displayed. And when they come off, I asked. Wolfe considered. Then one discovers whether there was a face beneath them, or merely fear. I paused at the door. You ever think about what would have happened if Pike had won? Yes, Wolfe said. She would have preserved silence. Temporarily. And then? I asked. And then, Wolfe said, another mask would have been required. I nodded. Endless supply. Demand creates it, Wolfe said. Outside, the city was bright, indifferent, harsh and already busy manufacturing tomorrow's problems. I stepped onto the stoop and adjusted my hat. Behind me, the brown stone stood as it always did, solid, patient, and unamused by human folly. Somewhere inside, Nero Wolfe sat in his chair, content not because the truth had been exposed, but because it had been placed precisely where it belonged. Not celebrated, not exploited, just understood. And in a world that preferred noise to clarity, that was justice enough. I headed down the steps, already composing the opening line of the next mess. Because masks may hide the truth, but sooner or later, they always slip.